Welcome to Your Soul Wisdom, hosted by Yana Amor Manocas. In each episode, we invite you on a transformative journey delving into the profound mysteries and wisdom of the soul. Join us as we explore a wide array of spiritual topics and sacred practices that nurture and heal the soul, from reincarnation and soul contracts to the enigmatic experiences of womb alchemy and astral travel. Our discussions are designed to enlighten, inspire, and deepen your understanding of your own soul's journey. With Your Soul Wisdom, nothing is off limits. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Your Soul Wisdom. We are so happy to be joined today by Marilyn Whall. Marilyn is a medium, a mentor, a spiritual teacher, and an author based in Sydney, Australia, with over 20 years of professional experience and a client base spanning Australia, New Zealand, the US, Singapore, India, and the UK. Renowned for her accuracy, compassion, and insight, Marilyn has taught alongside some of the world's most respected names in mediumship, including James Van Praagh, Tony Stockwell and John Holland, and has appeared on television and in publications including Good Health and Medicine Magazine, The Sunday Telegraph, Body and Soul, and The Times of India. Marilyn offers private readings, public demonstrations, development programs, and mentoring for those who wish to deepen their understanding of the spirit world or develop their own spiritual abilities. Marilyn, as if you haven't had enough accomplishments, is also an author of 2 books. The first one is Knowing, a Medium's Journey, and a new one, Growing, a Soul's Journey. Marilyn, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Gosh.
It's a lot. That's a lot.
Oh, just,
yeah.
Well,
that's a lot.
You. Yeah, thank you. Maybe I've been around for a while. Actually, I think it's more than 20 years. I think I'm getting close to 30.
Yeah. Well, time is a real thing, because we were just talking about, now you originally aired on our podcast on episode 146, and we were just talking about how that was over a year ago, but it almost feels like, how do we already get to a year? And so time is flying.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot in between. I took a tumble, broke a bone, and I'm back. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, there is. There's always a lot in between. But I think when we're passionate about, what we do, we turn up, at some godly hour. This one's pretty respectable. I think I was up at 2:45 a few weeks ago doing a podcast in the US. And people say, why would you do it? And it's like, well, it's only once.
Right.
It's not like I'm doing it every day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and why wouldn't you? Why would you miss an opportunity to be able to speak? And it's more about people finding what you guys do as well, in their deepest, darkest hours. If they're sleeping, they're awake, they can't sleep, they're tossing and turning, they're just really soul searching, and come on, everyone scrolls these days, and they find, what you're offering, and here we are. And, you just don't know how that might change somebody's moment. That's why that's why I do it anyway.
Well, that's a beautiful point, because we still get comments on episodes, even from the beginning of the podcast, where people will say, oh my God, I just stumbled upon the podcast or the YouTube channel or the podcast, whatever it is. And they're like, this is the perfect timing for whatever the message was of that episode. And so it's, when we first started recording, Kylie, I think you were up at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m.
No, I was up it was 3 a.m.
Okay, so it's 3 a.m. for you, 5 a.m. for me. The timing was brutal, but we had so much fun, and it meant so much to us, and there was so much joy and just magic when we came together that for us it was a no-brainer, until luckily we changed our schedule, thank God.
Yeah.
And now Lauren and I, they get up in the middle of the night.
We upgrade over time. Yeah. I saw that you guys all got to meet in person. How beautiful.
It was amazing.
What a trip.
Yeah.
It felt exactly as it does in this moment, where there was no awkwardness, there was no nothing. It felt like we see each other physically every day.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Not enough time.
Yeah. It's a bit
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
So who's going to throw the first question at me?
I want to know. Well, I want to know about your new book. So all I know is that it's about growing and it's about a soul's journey, and I suspect it's predominantly about your experience of your own soul's journey. So I suspect that there was something that inspired you to write the book, and so maybe we can start there.
Oh gosh, I think I might have mentioned I left school at 15. Didn't like English. Nothing was grammatically correct. So I never really thought I would write a book. I remember being in an apartment at some point in time in life, and there was a girl in the apartment below me at university studying to be a writer and author and all of those subjects, whatever you call it. And she looked at me one day and she said, "You'll probably be the one that'll write the book." And she still hasn't written the book. Yeah. But so it's interesting.
Maybe she's a medium too.
No, no, but it's interesting. So I never really thought I'd write a book. So the first one year was very much about that knowing, that pull from within, how I've always lived my life. And I guess, I don't know, sometimes I feel like the turtle. It might take me 10 years to have an epiphany about, the 10 years that I've lived, or something that somebody planted a seed 10 years ago, and then all of a sudden I get it. Yeah, so this is more about the soul's journey. Gosh, I was asked that question 10 years ago. James Van Praagh was writing a book about the soul, and he said to me, "What is the soul?" I said, "You're asking me?" Seriously, I said, "I've got no idea. I can't comprehend that somebody came up with that word or an analogy of the soul. And, you're asking me to dissect it and try and give you an explanation. What does it look like? What is it?" So, yeah, I've had a few experiences since. Yeah, the soul's journey. I mean, as somebody who communicates between the worlds, I'm like nobody. I'm just like the next person. I wake up and, what happens when you go to the other world? I've been hit over the head and racked over the knuckles by teachers because I've said it's energy. And, I said, well, surely they don't walk around in their pleated skirts and their cable cardigans in the other world. I mean, come on, seriously. And, I've looked at those in the other world as energy. I've been reminded that they've lived on the earth before. Where's my respect for them? So I've asked Spirit many questions. And right nearing the end of the book, I think there's a chapter where I had this really interesting experience. I mean, come on, you guys probably all know it. I'm talking about it. But I had an experience about going to the other world. And I went to sleep one night and I said to Spirit, "I want to know more about your world. I want to come into the other world, like while I'm asleep. I want to see what it's like." Anyway, I was very lucky that night it happened. I only asked once. And it's hard for me to talk about it because I feel emotional trying to describe it. It was something that was indescribable, the beauty. So I remember, asking that question, going to sleep, seeing a light, seeing many hands. And I remember waking up the next morning and I was a silhouette in the dream state in the other world. And for about 3 days, when I woke up the next day, I sat at my computer in this euphoric state. It was, you couldn't burst the bubble. I felt like a bubble, encased in all those colors that you see in a bubble, all the rainbow colors. And I'm sitting here for the life of me trying to describe the experience, trying to put it into words. And it was difficult. And it took me probably 10 years to put the second book out. after I wrote the first book, I sat at the computer and people emailed me, said, hey, I couldn't put it down, read it in 3 hours. And I thought, wow, it'd be nice to write a book in 3 hours. So I started. Yeah, 10 years after that start. Yeah. Yeah, and I struggled. Would I put it out? Wouldn't I put it out? Rah, 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 all of those things. But anyway, I did put the second book out and I did write about that experience. And right up until the 11th hour of editing that chapter of the experience that I had and trying to describe it and trying to put it into words, I realized that that's what the soul looked like in the light, a silhouette in the light. I mean, it might be a no brainer to most people thinking about it, talking about it, listening to this, but it took me that long to really understand it. But the other thing that came from it was the light. And I worked in the New Age stores a lot of years ago, and everyone was hugs, peace, kisses, And I went through this period of it just wasn't true. It wasn't the truth. It was just everyone was pretending. Everyone was hugging, hey, peace, man, love
and
man,
light.
whatever, love and light. Yeah. So I had this whole story around love and light. But when I had that epiphany and that experience of going to the other world and then trying to write about it and describe it, the light, the love in that light, indescribable. So it just changed everything around my limited way of thinking of, love and light as well.
But do you
Yeah. But anyway, you're gonna have to read the book.
Do you think
if you want to read me trying to describe
but do you
it,
think
yeah.
that having that actual experience, as you said, it's like indescribable, but now that you've had that, the actual resonance of those words, love and light, land differently with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had this limited thinking. Well, maybe at that point in time in life where I was at, I didn't have any greater understanding of it. Yeah. And I'm probably talking about 27, 28 years ago, 30 years ago. Yeah. So obviously, my direct experience has changed my
I also think that those
understanding
words can have more,
of it.
they can land differently, I guess, if that person has actually experienced that energy versus just saying it, because that's what everyone is saying in a new age world or whatever it may be.
Yeah, but at the time, I was sitting in the quiet and hungering truth, and everyone's truth is something different as well. So, I think I had a big wake up to think that everybody was just pretending. Everyone was in denial, or, I mean, who am I to judge at that point in time looking back? But that's where I was. Yeah, but it might not have been like that for those people then. It's a bit like I say, sitting in judgment all those years back. But I think there was a lot of it going on, if I'm really honest. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to do the mediumship work, because, when we communicate with those in the other world and we bring through detail, we get a yes. We get a yes. So when I was sitting in the quiet, sitting with the spirit within, I look back now, I haven't always known why I've done things. I don't know if I ever know why I do things, but I do. Right. But I do wake up somewhere along the way, and it's like, yeah, and then it's almost like, full circle.
Yeah,
and I've had a few full circles in my life. Yeah, but it's that not always having to know. And we talk about the unknown, and people think it's scary, but it's not scary because we don't really know. We just think we know, you know. So, it's like go out on a limb. That Shirley MacLaine wrote a book about going out on a limb. Yeah, and there's a lot of truth in it.
Well, for everyone who hasn't watched the last episode, we spoke about trust and faith, and Marilyn shared her story about how she's always just sort of trusted and done the next thing that was shown to her. So that's really, where this comes from. And then I guess, you said, we just think we know, but we really don't. And maybe those experiences wouldn't have necessarily crossed your path had you tried to, I guess, be more in control of what was going on rather than following spirit.
Yeah, it's interesting because then it comes back to free will and, is our life planned?
Well,
There's so many subjects.
Hold on, Marilyn, you can't just skip over that.
Yeah, that's such a big thing with us. Can you tell us your opinion
Hold on.
of
Do
free
you
will and
believe
planning?
we have free will?
I do, but how do we know that it isn't predestined as well?
Right.
That'll blow your mind, won't it?
Well, I am
Well,
very much of that belief myself, and it took me a minute to get there. But the concept of are things predestined, pre-planned, written out anyway, you're going to get to that same finish line anyway. That has been something that has just ached me for a while. But I do confidently, at least maybe in my reality or experience, absolutely believe the things are predestined, if you will.
Yeah.
Maybe the journey of how you get there is shorter or longer depending what decisions you make, but you're going to get to that same threshold every time. That's my own personal belief.
Well, I've had another experience where I've asked that question. I spent a year sitting in the quiet every Saturday night. I gave up my Saturday nights like you do. People go out and party. I turned up at some people's house. There was 4 of us, and we sat in the energy, sat in the quiet, and they directed the energy towards me so I could experience the trance energy. And for those watching, that's like those in the other world. I don't like to call them spirit, those in the other world, but they can speak through us. And I've never really wanted them to speak through me. I've always said to spirit, I want my hands on the steering wheel, my foot on the brake, but hey, I still want to experience it, but I want to be here. I can experience the croaky voice, my voice starting to change, but I don't feel that that's the path that I came here to follow, for the voices to speak through me. And my voice will start to go croaky because whenever I talk about things, spirit will impress something upon me so I can share it with you. But anyway, in that year of sitting, I had many epiphanies, many visions, and it was explained to me that we're a mere speck of dust in the greater scheme of things when we come into the world. And like a sewing pin, little sewing pin, it's how it's got that little head on it. And it was shown to me that that's, we were that mere speck of dust in the greater scheme of things. I was also shown that, there is always someone, guide, whatever you want to label it, waiting in the wings, standing on the stage, standing behind the curtain. That's how it was shown to me, keeping an eye on us. Okay. And then I was also shown how the road is laid out. And we can come to what we feel as crossroads in our earthly world journey. And yeah, you talk about free will. We can go left. Maybe it's a dead end and we'll come back to that fork and then we'll go right. So yeah, sometimes I'll ask these questions and it's like, do I get the answers? But I think my opinion of what I've experienced is I don't really give it a lot of thought. People talk about it, and yeah, I really have the opinion that, life is predestined. Yeah, you talk about free will, but hey, that just doesn't sit with me thinking, oh, yeah, we've got free will. Yeah, we think we've got free will as humans. Of course we do. Come on. That's how we live in this body, we live in these thoughts. But my question is always, although, is that predestined as well? Free will. Do any of us really know? Is it? Does any of us know? We think it's free will. We've got choices, and I'm sure we've got choices from our perspective of, the human limited way of thinking. But then I always say to spirit, well, is that predestined as well? I've got too many questions to ask the spirit. I sit in my office and close my eyes and I say to spirit, are the stars up there those in the other world? Is that all of the those who have lived on the earth before? Is that what the stars are? And then spirit will say to me, oh, there's many different planets and the universe, and I'm thinking, well, that wasn't the answer that I wanted. But then I'll start Googling, Mars, and then I have that realization of, wow, there's just so much I don't know.
Right.
That's
Yeah. So,
interesting. That sounds like a
yeah.
great question for the rods, actually. One day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
About the
stars.
stars, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, the answer I got was, there's many different planets in the galaxy, and I'm
Mm,
sitting here thinking, oh, that wasn't really the answer I was hoping for.
mm.
But it opened up my mind and my awareness too, Googling, researching, Mars and whatever. And it was like, gosh, there's so much in this space that we reside in that, oh my God, the mind boggles. There's a lot.
Can I ask you a question about that experience you had where there's no words? I don't know if I've shared this before, but my mother had a dream, but not really a dream, where my grandfather, who had crossed over already, he came to her. And when she connected with him, Baba is how you say dad in Greek. She's like, Baba, I want to come where you are. And he said, well, you can't. And she said, well, can you tell me what it's like? And I'm paraphrasing the words, but can you tell me what it's like? And he said, there are no words. Like, I can't tell you what it's like here. I can't explain it to you. And she said, have you met God? And he said, yes. And she said, well, can you describe God? And he said, I cannot describe what God feels like.
Yeah.
So she was asking all these questions, but all the questions were that it's so beautiful, it's so above and beyond anything we could ever imagine, that there's no word, like you said, there's no words to,
It's
encapsulate what it
indescribable.
is.
It's
So
indescribable.
I guess my question is, to receive that kind of message, you in your experience, my mother and hers, is it because that is the actual universal truth, or is it just your personal subjective experience of what the soul is like, or what the other world or reality is like? Do you understand what I'm asking?
I'm going to see if I can figure it out.
Okay.
Okay. So, for humans to have experiences, as you can understand, there's many different levels of understanding and beliefs or opinions. Yeah. So that would basically and simply come back to us. It's a bit like me talking about writing The Knowing, a Medium's Journey. And then I talked about, the love and light. I mean, my perspective, my understanding of what those things were at that time in my life. So as we evolve, all of those understandings, all of those experiences evolve. I mean,
Right.
10 years ago, what's a soul? I mean, come on, a silhouette standing in the light. I mean, that just sort of blew my mind. For 69 years living on the earth, that's something very new for me. Yeah. Um, but I know from what I experience that it is indescribable. When I communicate with those in the other world, and they impress images upon us, like I'm able to say to people, maybe I can see your dad and your mum, grandma, and they're holding hands and there's a rainbow, or it's a very beautiful scene. Well, don't hit me over the head, anybody, but I honestly feel, from my opinion, that when you go to the other world, that, I mean, who am I to say you don't walk amongst a garden of daisies? But I know when I'm working and I'm communicating with those in the other world, I know that they're impressing an image upon me so I can relay it to the person sitting with me, that their loved ones have met up or they're in a nice place. Okay. Do I think it's like that when you go there? Well, I don't, because since I had that experience of going into the other world and the dream state, the night state, stepping into the other world, pure light, pure consciousness, pure love, just indescribable, indescribable beauty. I mean, it would break you. It's like I said, I came back for 3 days. I was in this euphoric state. I I couldn't move out of that euphoric state. Like 3 days. And again, trying to describe it, like a clear bubble, the ones that you blow, but you can see all those colours. Um,
Pearlescent.
and the euphoricness was, there are no words, and when I wrote about it in my book, I was trying to describe it to a mosaic vase because I love mosaics. And I was trying to put it into, working with an editor, an English teacher. It's one thing to describe it in my world, but it's also got to be understandable for those who haven't had the experience. And that's really hard for me to do. I get a bit lost there. So then I tried to describe it as a mosaic vase, and that feeling was like, we're shattered and broken into 1,000 pieces, but we're still whole. And there's the beauty in that. And that reminds me of in Japan, anything that they have that's broken, they put it back together with gold.
Yep.
And I,
Mm-hmm.
Kintsugi.
yeah, and it's like in the imperfection. I mean, there is perfection. Yeah, yeah. Look, we're lucky that we have so many
Wabi-sabi.
epiphanies. We have so many epiphanies and so many experiences. But I hope I answered that in regards to what your mum experienced with your dad. Yeah, there are
But
no
yeah, so Marilyn,
words.
from what you said,
Um,
it's interesting because you were speaking about when you relay messages and there might be the rainbow and holding hands and those things. Really, those in the other world are trying to impress as best they can in whatever terms us humans can receive of how it is over there. But what you experienced when you traveled that night while you were asleep, you weren't necessarily, quote, I guess, expecting that because it had never been conveyed to you in a way because you hadn't experienced it, right? So it's not necessarily that it was a preconceived notion.
no, it was very real. It was very real. I can just feel it in my soul now, and it's again, when I communicate with those in the other world, there is a blending of souls. We are free of form. People talk about, you'll be around people and they'll say something and then they'll say, oh my God, all the hairs on my arm just stood up. And, people talk about, oh, maybe grandma's near or spirit's near. Well, to me, I really feel that the soul body of those in the other world blended with your soul body, touched your soul body. There was this moment, this moment in time, or this second in time where, you were free of form, and you had that experience because those in the other world do blend with us. I can sit here and I know I've got a pair of shorts on and got hairy legs and varicose veins and I'm a man, but I know I'm still here, so we talk about blending and being,
Wait. Hold on. I need you to explain. Wait, what?
So when we work with the other world, there's many ways that it can work for us. We can be aware of those in the other world standing next to us when we're communicating.
Yeah.
And then there can be a blending of souls. It's a semi sort of trance energy where I am still here, right? But I know when I am sitting here that I've got grey curly hair. I've got a very different nose. I've got a pair of caramel shorts on, and gee, I've got a bruise on my toe and some brown sandals, and I know that I'm a man. Okay, but he is blending, overlapping, soul to soul. I am working with him. Yeah, so there's many different levels and ways that we communicate with those in the other world. And it's having that awareness that we are free of form when we work. Yeah, does everybody get that? It's pretty normal for me. It's
I
probably
do, because you'd have to be so conscious of being free of form to not be possessive and defensive about your own actual body. That's, like when you're describing it, I understand that it's a spiritual experience. And thank goodness you said free of form, because that makes it much easier for me to manage for whatever reason. Because other than that, I don't think I'd be very happy with something mixing with me unless I invited it. Are you inviting these mixings?
I just surrender and I'm happy to do what I do. I don't have any fear around communicating with those in the other world. There's been many, many years of practice, many, many years of sitting in the quiet, becoming aware of different intensities, of different energies, to be okay with what I see and what I feel and all of that. Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of things. And when I talk about an overlapping, I have the awareness that I am here, okay?
Yeah.
But I've got that
Yeah.
awareness that I am somebody else in that moment. And yeah, I'm okay with it. I spent probably a lot of my years sitting in the quiet, sitting in satsang. What is satsang? It's a practice where you sit in, you are free of form, free, we're not our hair, we're not our personality, we're not our thoughts. And that probably took me some 10 years or more to really understand what I experienced back then. And I now know, I think I had an epiphany a couple of weeks ago as to some work I'd probably do next year. And it's like I've done the full circle again. All those years ago, I used to sit in the quiet and I was sitting with the spirit within, just sitting in that unlimitless space, sitting in pure consciousness to, quieten my mind. At the time, I probably had no understanding of why I was doing what I was doing, but it was my way of connecting to the spirit within, and that opened me up so I could communicate with, those in the other world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
You must have been motivated to sit, though. I mean, I don't mean that you were scheduled to sit or something like that, but you were obviously making time for stuff to come up or to connect with.
I ran anywhere I could find a place to sit every day of the week for a long time because it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
couldn't get enough of it. There was a thirst and a hunger to sit in this space, whether there were tears, emotions, being put on the spot. I had a fear of public speaking, and I'm sitting in this retreat one weekend and the mic's going by and I'm thinking, oh my God, don't come to me, don't come to me. Well, it did come to me one day. And I had a fear of public speaking. I had a fear of being seen. And, when the mic came to me and I spoke, the guru on the platform said, how much can I say about what I heard or whatever, And I just said, everything. God knows I must have been in a state of shock, And he said, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Wow. Can you imagine what that's like? I was in working in the New Age stores in this peace, love, whatever space, And here's this guru on the stage saying, in front of 500 people or something, I can hear you, but I can't see you. And I'm thinking, whatever. Anyway, went back to the room at the lunch break. I went for a walk to pat this Clydesdale horse in the paddock, totally unaware there was an electric fence. I got catapulted on my bum. It was like if the first wake up wasn't enough, then I got a second one. And then after lunch, coming back into the room, this girl stood up and she said, I just want to thank that girl for what she said when you asked how much could you share, and she said everything. She said, I just spent the lunch hour in my room just vomiting and crying, with what came up for me if the mic had been passed to me and I'd given that answer. So, just through that experience, we talk about not knowing how something that we do or we offer affects another person unless you get that opportunity to hear. Yeah. And I'm not sure how we got onto that subject, but anyway, yeah.
No, but how you said that you've done things where you don't know why you're doing them, you're just doing them. I've experienced that almost my entire life.
Me too.
I have no idea why I do things.
Me too.
But it's just one of those where it's it may be something I would have never, ever, ever done. But for whatever reason, in that particular time and place, I'm like, oh, I need to do that. And I have no idea what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what I'm doing it for. I know nothing, but I still go through the entire motion. It is the wildest experience. That's so crazy. I've
Same.
never heard anybody say that before.
Same. And I started sitting some 30 years ago. And I think one of the first courses I put on my website was Allow Me to Be Your Personal Guide. And it was very much about trying to help people who were stuck, trying to help people about mindfulness, about being present in the moment, not living in your head, not creating stories and thoughts. And just a few weeks ago, I was logging on to America with the student, and I'm sitting at my computer, and I had this epiphany. Some 30 years ago, when I started to sit with the spirit within, that opened me up to communicate with those in the other world. I could cry. My book is closed on my website because I'm just fully booked for teaching readings. And that moment happened, and it was so clear to me that moving forward next year, it's almost like going back to the spirit within and offering those classes of awareness, helping people that are suffering, struggling, just to be present, just to come back to the present. So, yeah, all that space in between, and it's like I've done a full circle and coming back to where it all started. Crazy, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Who would have ever known? Who would have ever known? Anyway, it's nice when we have those moments. When you were talking about your mum communicating with your dad,
my grandfather.
Oh, your grandfather. My editor in America, her mum's in the spirit world, and she's written quite a lot of books. And she was writing this book with a few people and wanted me to read it and, see what I thought about it before she published it. But she was wanting a title. So anyway, I got off the call, and all of a sudden I found myself just distracted, and next thing I'm cleaning a mirror in the bathroom, not wondering why. I've just got up from my computer and I've gone to the bathroom to clean a mirror, whatever. It's a common thing for me to go and do a human thing in between appointments. It's just, I think it's like some sort of normality, or it'll just bring me back a little bit. Anyway, after cleaning the mirror, I walked down the stairs, and Spirit said to me, imagine a world with no walls. Imagine a world with no rooms. Like we are always near. We are always with you. I mean, come on. I know when I communicate with the spirit world, there's, we're in the space. There's no, limited way of thinking. There's no walls. There's no rooms. But I had this epiphany, and again, and it's not until you have those epiphanies that they really have that impact. And I put that in my second book, imagine a world with no rooms. Imagine a world with no walls. And if you can think about that, those in the other world are here. Yeah. And, I rang my editor back in America, and I told her what happened when I got off the call, how I started to clean the mirror. And she goes, oh, my God, my mother. There was 5 girls in the family. And she said, my mother was always cleaning the mirrors. And I'm thinking, thanks, Mum. And I said, well, that's the message that I got from Mum. I don't know if you want to use it for your title. She didn't. But I used it and put it in my book. Yeah. So come on. I'm oblivious sometimes to the awareness or knowing that those in the other world are with me when I wake up every morning. I'll turn up to do a reading. I'll dig out a jumper and think, why am I looking for this jumper? It's old. I haven't worn it forever. I'll put it on, and someone will come through, and that'll be the color of their clothes. And I'm thinking, okay, so you were with me. I'll dig out a red lipstick and it'll come through in a session. Do I know that they're with me in the bathroom? I don't really give it any attention,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just turn up. And then all the dots sort of get connected, and I'm thinking, wow. I'm always in a state of wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kylie.
I jump
Like,
in here
Marilyn,
and ask
have
a
you ever had
question?
a sort of negative experience from? Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, Carly. You
No, you're
definitely
fine.
go
Go
for it.
ahead. Go ahead. It's fine.
No, not really.
Um,
No, I haven't really had a negative
Mm.
experience.
With
But
spirits directing you, yeah, was the whole
that,
question.
yeah, I have a very different understanding of that people believe, and it's not to take anything away from the work that they do because it's real and that's their path. But I try and educate people into the understanding that, we are working with multifaceted personalities and personalities that are very different to ours. So, anything that's foreign to me or the next person can be scary. Yeah. I took a meditation class one night, and on the way out of the class, one of the girls said to me, "Oh, you've got someone standing next to you in the spirit world. It's like the Grim Reaper." And I said, "Oh, well, you've been watching too many movies because I believe it's a monk." So, just the two different understandings of what her
Mm.
experience of seeing someone with a hood
Yeah.
next to me,
Yeah.
she went to Grim Reaper,
Yeah.
and it was like, "Oh, really? I believe it's a monk." So, I've had a couple of pleasant visions in the dream state. I don't really entertain them, um, you know, but it isn't what I came here to work with. I don't believe that. I shouldn't say believe because I'll get into trouble for that one. I don't. I have the opinion that's better that 100% no, that those in the other world aren't stuck. I don't live under the umbrella of those in the other world needing us to move them on. Yeah, but that's not what I came here to offer. So I don't want to disrespect someone's journey that's come here to do that work. But it isn't where I reside here in the earthly world, vibration wise or soul wise. Yeah, there's a lot of misconception about so much in the spirit world. You know, it's not uncommon for those who go to the other world to stay close to the earthly world when they first pass. And if you can think about that from a human point of view, they want the loved ones grieving on the earth, the loss of them, to either experience them close or to know they're close. Come on, it's a big loss for the human to lose the physical form. Okay, they can reside there. So one of my mentors said to me, if you could think of that person in the spirit world staying close to the earth as their heaven, that's because they want their loved one to experience them close to them. That's a really nice analogy. Not that they're a lost soul and they're stuck between the worlds. Seriously, they told me, imagine a world with no rooms, with no walls. Come on, how can they be stuck? But there's different levels of consciousness that we all have in the earthly world and that we move through the worlds in the other world with, just like we can move through in the earthly world. Yeah. We can look at the analogy that those in the other world might want to spend some time close to the earthly world to convalesce. They might have been really sick. They need some time to reevaluate things. Um, yeah. So it all comes down to educating people. Yeah. But come on, everybody
Well,
has a
Kylie's.
Yeah, Kylie's ready.
Oh,
Kylie's got a
Yeah,
yeah.
question
I'm
I go
dying
after
to hear Carly's
Kylie.
question.
That's
first.
okay. So Marilyn might not be aware that I didn't sign up for this life, but it chose me. I am one of the ones that can see the multiple realms. I've been to the hell realms, and it's been a very interesting journey. Um, and it's funny because I didn't really have an appreciation for the spirit world in the upper realms, like the heaven realms, the different dimensional realms. I'm just saying up as a symbolic thing. Went until I went to the lower and I experienced the underworld and what happens under there. And I have a great amount of respect for what happens under there and its purpose. And I do believe that there is a plateau of some point to kind of separate those. Do you believe that we don't need to experience the duality in order to really appreciate the upper dimensions? Does that make sense?
Oh, I don't know. I think the duality of life, we have to experience pain to know what joy is. We have to experience darkness to know what depression is. We have to experience love to know what that is. So I don't see things as good or bad or hell and whatever. It's just one. To me, it's all the same. When I sat in the quiet, there was many things that came up for me that were unpleasant. I had to love all of them.
So that's your approach, is to love it. I'm curious because I think that a lot of people would reject it immediately instead of showering it with
But it's
love.
part of us. It's part of us. Every facet of the diamond, every facet of the person that you think is dark, evil, is part of us. It's not separate from us. It resides in all of us.
I have a little bit of a problem with that.
Yeah.
Only when I think about like people who commit really horrific crimes or abuse their children or, do really horrific things to people. I'm like, I could never do that. So to think that we also have that with, like, to me, that just feels right. Yeah, see, that to me, it maybe that's just something that I just can't accept yet.
I think let's have a look at a car with nuts and bolts and screws, because that's what Spirit just impressed upon me. So if we looked at us as a car, and then we were washers and nuts and bolts and whatever, some cars fall apart, some cars live forever. It's that could be a part of you that you don't like that somebody's done, but you didn't come here to walk that path. So, it hasn't raised its head, so to speak, if I can put it that way. I didn't come here to kill people. I don't know if I've been wired back to front, but I can have the utmost compassion for mothers that drown three of their children. And it's all over the news. And I can say to my daughter, like, oh my God, what happened to us as a society for that mum to get to that place? And my daughter's like, Mum,
I'm with you as
I'm
well.
with you, Marilyn.
she just,
Yeah.
Hold on.
Also the concept of free will. I mean, like, we all love the concept of free will when it brings us health, wealth, and prosperity.
But I get, just let's
But
come back. Yeah, but I get what you're saying. Look, I think that if we're all tipped over the edge, that if we're put into situations in life, possibility that we are all capable of doing some things that are unimaginable. But I don't think that's not what we came here to learn.
But when I was little, that was one of my really big things. Like, I would see horrific things that happen, but I would sit there and go, how can we judge when we don't know what happened to that person or what they've experienced, or all those, like, I used to sit and think about it for hours as like a less than 7-year-old, so not that any of the actions are things that I would condone, but it's like, where did that come from? What events transpired to create the circumstances that would happen, all of those sorts of things. So it's a big topic.
Yeah. We don't live in those worlds, us. Here we are talking about murdering somebody. We don't run in those cycles. And then we talk about consciousness. And Kylie, you talk about, the different levels, layers. Well, there's many different worlds in the other world. And it comes back to, our mindset. You know, we take that with us. We reside in that space. We can move through the worlds, just like we can move through the worlds in the earthly world. Like all of us here have obviously changed our understanding of life, our way of living. You know, we have. Come on, we've turned our lives upside down. Um, but I do think that there is part of that in all of us. Yeah, whether it's buried really, really deep. It's just a matter of we didn't come here to live that life today. Yeah,
But maybe
I
it's
don't
the
know if that
potential that
helps.
exists within everything, as another way of putting it.
Well, yeah, like how, I mean, gosh, what sort of person would you turn into if you were confronted in a dark street or something? I don't know. Or someone threw you a weapon and you had to defend yourself. I mean, what sort of monster would you turn into if that's how we're going to talk about it? I don't know. I don't know because I would never put myself into a situation like that, hopefully. Yeah, but what are we all capable of? And probably a lot of people will have a different view listening to this
Right.
and think that we're all crazy.
So here is my other backup question to that. So if I've done heinous things on my earthly existence and I've transitioned and I'm unable to forgive the perpetrator, unable to forgive myself, I don't harbor any guilt. Am I then hovering in the upper realms? Like where would that energy go? Would that just be transmuted? Like what's your theory on your view on that?
Look, no, again, it comes back to that level of consciousness, that level of awareness. Okay, so I try and explain to students if you think of an apartment building and there's 55 people families live in the apartment building, they all live different lives to you. Okay. So I see the other world consciously, energetically, mindset wise as the same. So you will reside with that same mindset of not being able to forgive and all of that. Okay. Now, there is a possibility that a loved one's going to come to a medium for a reading, and you might not have had that belief when you're on the earthly world and think, well, no, I don't want to come to the medium and I don't want to give messages to my loved one. Okay. But then your loved one might be thinking, oh, did I just turn around and were you with me? So then there'll be mediums in the other world that will help you understand that it would mean a lot to your loved one in the earthly world if you did communicate through a medium so that they get the confirmation that you are with them. And through that direct experience from you and the other world, offering that moment, energetically in the other world, your energy can change. But then you have to decide, yes, I will come to the medium and I will allow the loved one on the earth to have that experience.
So there's a
Okay.
healing that's
Just
possible
like,
when you're in the other world by choosing the right
yes.
things, just like on
Yeah.
this side of things.
So if you choose to come through the medium and, there is that moment of you absolutely seeing things very differently, there is that chance for you, because it happens to me, to come through the medium and say, hey, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Up to the human whether they decide, yes, I will, and the story goes on. But you actually benefit from that as well. You have the same choice in the other world if you want to move between the worlds or if you want to stay in the same place. Yeah. That's a hard one to get your head around as well. But energetically, like Lauren said, you do benefit. And a lot of humans, mediums, don't talk about that. They just talk about the person in the earthly world getting a healing. But those in the other world get a healing as well. And they can move through the worlds if they want to. Mavis Pittilla, one of my mentors before she went to the earthly world, she said that, she'd probably,
Yeah.
can you hear my
Straight
voice
away.
starting to change? Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Mavis. That's what happens to me when I start to work. They just come and impress things upon me. And I feel very, I can't say, well, I feel really teary as a human because Mavis's energy and her love as a teacher, it's just, come on, you guys can feel it. I can't really find the words because I just want to feel the beauty and the tears. It's not sad for me. It's just lovely to have this moment. Yeah, and she totally distracted me. Anyway, she said, get back to teaching. Okay, so before she went to the earthly world, she was very conscious that she would convalesce for a while and then she would move between the worlds and she would find all the mediums that had worked in the earthly world and she would stay there and continue to help the mediums in the other world. Yeah, she didn't want to go any further. She didn't want to keep moving between the worlds, become enlightened, and she didn't want to come back. I just had a moment with her. So come on, she's still teaching those in the other world and she's still working with us here in the earthly world. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
it is hard to describe, and we have limited ways of understanding. I mean, people listening to this, they'll think that girl has totally lost her marbles to think that I've got the ability to go and, gosh.
No.
My son talks about the one time that he remembers that I probably lost my marbles and got the wooden spoon and chased him up the hall. Well, he probably thought that I was the devil. Yeah. So come on, again, it comes back to the perception, like, the student thinking I had the Grim Reaper next to me. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that helps people understand.
So can I ask about? Thank you, but can I ask about going back to where you say that that not being stuck or on the other side or in places. Years ago, when I was much more
You
younger,
you feel people need some help.
um, I do, I do. Sometimes people need help to share
Sorry.
of what you get in that
Okay.
information.
No.
What's happened?
Let me listen to you. Sorry, I shouldn't be so rude. Tell me what you want to say.
No, what? No, what were you going to say? What were you saying?
Oh my God, seriously, you were talking about, no disrespect, but you were talking about being stuck, and I was just there with you and the council are picking up the rubbish and emptying the rubbish bins. And I'm just, come on, whatever. Let's not go there. But come on, let's talk about you and your experience.
Well,
Yeah.
what I was going to say was that years ago, I had a next door neighbor friend, and she had a young daughter, and she would have been about maybe 2. She was speaking. I think she had the ability to, sentences and words and things like that. And I remember that I cannot remember if it was in her sleeping or waking, or maybe it was in both, but she would continuously talk about this man that used to come and be with her and speak with her and things like that. And but he would, I think it got serious one day because he would constantly be telling her to come with him, to come with him. And I think it'd been dream state to come with him. And because of the work that my mum, when she was alive, that she used to do, she realized and she was able to describe obviously this man to her mum, and this was her father in the spirit world. And my mum had to sever the connection, dissolve it, because he was drawing her. And this was how my mum explained to me what was happening, that he was drawing her into the spirit world. And it wasn't out of, I guess, malice. He just loved her so much. This was his granddaughter. And I think it may have, I don't know if it was his first granddaughter. I'm not sure. I think it was. But he wasn't here when she was born either. But he kept on coming to play with her. And in doing that, he didn't want to leave her. And he was literally drawing her into the spirit world. So my mum had to sever the link. And she never dreamt him again after that. And he never came. But I was just kind of like linking that into sometimes whereby, yes, you want to be with your loved ones, but can being with your loved ones sometimes be detrimental? Just like how if we are mourning, just like how if we as humans, we are mourning so much for ones that have passed, it kind of keeps them here. I remember my dad always saying that to me before he even passed. He did some kind of like magical ceremony, and when he came out of it, he said it to me explicitly that when he goes, and he didn't go until about 30-40 years later, but when he goes, that I'm not to mourn him in the sense of, I don't know if he was telling me to manage my grief, because otherwise he wouldn't be light enough to move as he needed to move, because I would keep him here. And so, yeah.
So there's a lot of things. So to go back to the little girl and the man, and this is not to take anything away from your mum's understanding of how it all works. See, my theory is that little girl wouldn't have gone to the other world if it wasn't her time. Did he want her to come for a walk with him into the other world, to experience the other world and come back? I mean, I've been to the other world and I've come back. I haven't gone. That's just something to think about. Talking about not having that belief that souls are lost, I got called to an apartment building with a girl that I knew who rented out the apartments, and she couldn't rent this one apartment. And she knew that I did something sort of funny and, said, hey, can you come and have a look and help me? And she's like, I don't know if the girl OD'd in the bath, but an ambulance was called and she was taken away and she passed. So, me not really believing in people being stuck and whatever. Of course, I've had this experience. Of course, Spirit's trying to teach me. So I went and sat in the apartment of the one the girl couldn't rent. And, anyway, I walked in and I was drawn into the bathroom. I found out later that they thought she passed in the bath. I found that out later. So I was drawn into the bathroom, sort of slid down the wall, sat on the bathroom floor of an empty apartment like you do, trying to figure out what happened. And the girl told me her whole life story. And I went back to my friend. I gave her the keys. I said, the apartment will rent on whatever Saturday. I think it was a Saturday coming up. She had a house showing, and it did. And I went home. I climbed into bed because I just felt odd. I didn't know what was happening for me, out of the body, whatever. I climbed into bed, and this girl kept telling me about her life. So my understanding was that what that girl needed was to share her story with someone for the energy in that place to shift. Okay? So when people talk about house clearings and going into places and feel that there's a spirit stuck, my understanding is there's a residue there of their life. I don't feel they're stuck. I feel there's a residue, an imprint, a story of their life. And, they know if the person who's moved in can see them, or that person's got an interest in mediums, pick me and I'll come over and I'll tell you all about that. And then the energy becomes lighter. Sometimes those in the other world just want to be able to tell their life story to someone, and they haven't got anybody that they can tell it to. So I hope that makes sense in regards to standing residued energy.
But isn't that a matter of perception? Isn't that a matter of perception, though?
Yeah, it can be. It's like other people have come here to the earthly world to believe that souls are lost and they need help to be moved
It's all
through the
different
worlds.
facets of
Yeah,
expression,
and people,
really, because like Marilyn has said,
yeah,
you know, a few times about what she came here to do. It's like that's not part
Yeah,
of it, right?
correct.
So
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
different strokes for different
yeah.
yeah,
folks.
But it is perception, and I don't really, with the work that I've studied, if I think about sitting in a space and being free of form, free of thought, knowing I'm not my hair, I'm not my personality, I'm not my thoughts, and knowing there is so much more to this life. Um, yeah, it's like a lot of teachers teach, that we're stuck in these mindsets of who we think we are or what happened to us. And we have a choice to be free of all of that if we look at it differently. Yeah. But I don't want to take anything away from someone who does that work, because when I first started to deliver messages, I delivered messages to an audience. I don't know, there was 500 people or something, and the girl working with me was very much a psychic, not a medium. And afterwards, she probably got 495 readings booked, and I got 5 readings booked. And I remember talking to James Van Praagh and said, "Jesus, I must really suck at this, what I do. She got 490, and she's not even a medium, she's a psychic." And he said to me, "Honey, there's so many more people in the earthly world that need that work than this work." And I said, "Okay, thanks, I'm good with that." Yeah, you know. Um, I don't know. Yeah, my cup of tea is not the same as the next person's
yeah,
cup of
yeah,
tea.
yeah, yeah.
My daughter says to me, "Mum, get a real job. What world do you live in? You don't even live in the real world." And I'm thinking, it's really nice where I am. Thank you very much. You can stay where you are. I'm happy to be here. Yeah. And it does come down to perception. And I don't want to dim anybody's light and think that if that's where you're at, that's what you can't offer. It's just not what I offer.
I
Right.
totally get it.
Everybody, yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
I always say that everybody has their
Mhm.
job, and
The wing mirrors,
all their
Amanda.
role
The
to
wing
play.
mirrors.
Wing mirrors, the wing
Yeah.
mirrors, the wing mirrors. You even mentioned the
My
car.
my
Marilyn
my
mentioned the car.
my ex-husband, when I met him, he used to come out of the shower and tell me that he had to go down to the riverbank and to the rock to help someone move on between the worlds because they were stuck. And I was like, huh?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that was, he was at Ducks at university. He was a CFO, COO, accountant. He used to communicate with the spirit world, know who everybody was and whatever. And here I was spending hours of every day sitting in the quiet to have an experience and be able to do what I did. And I'm thinking, wow, what happened? You don't ever sit. Yeah. Yeah, we're all wired differently. We've all got
Yeah.
a different purpose. And yeah, you can talk about dark and light, good and bad, evil. And yeah, there are some pretty horrific things that I probably, I don't know. I feel we are so far removed from those things. I think about the war happening in the world. We are so far removed from those things to have any understanding of that horrificness.
Yep. Marilyn, I feel like we could sit here and talk to you forever.
Yeah.
Okay. There's such a wealth of knowledge and information and stories and experiences that I know we're going to keep pulling at that thread. But for right now, can you let our listeners know where they can find you to get all the information on Marilyn?
So just my name, Marilyn, MarilynWhall.com or .com.au. Yeah, I have a website. Yeah, but thank you. It's nice having so many different views and so many different experiences, and so many different understandings, because you know what, I'm going to go about my day to day, and I'm going to be in several different worlds, a teaching world. I've got a friend visiting from another state, so I'm going to be in another world. in the human world today. And I'm sure I'm going to have some epiphanies after being
Yay.
here with all of you.
Can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, back at you. Yeah.
Yeah. But
you.
it's so nice to be here, and I'm so happy that you guys are still doing what you're doing and spreading seeds of love. And I wish
Thank
you all
you,
well
Marilyn.
with it.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn.
For
Yeah,
everyone
thank you.
listening, to join the collective, to get more information on Marilyn, to get a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, a light body activation, to check out Rachel's new awesome website and learn more about her, head on over to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. We thank you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we
Bye,
hope you have a blessed
everyone.
day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.